House Bill 4, an act proposing to amend sections 36, 42, and 55 of the Constitution of Kentucky relating to sessions of the General Assembly. Representative Osborne.
Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from Oldham for explanation of the Senate amendments and motion thereon.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. As you will remember from the first week of session, House Bill 4 is the constitutional amendment that allows us to change the method in which we conduct our sessions. Through multiple iterations, things you will not hear me say often, the Senate made a good bill even better. No, actually, they really did. And this has been a bill that has been quite a process, but it should be a process because we are about to submit to the voters a proposal that will change the way we will conduct our sessions, and it does demand a great deal of thought and careful consideration. And it also deserves its best chance for passage as we submit it to the voters. And in working with the Senate, working with the minority in the Senate, a lot of good ideas came out of that transaction. And the first being, when the bill left here, it was a repeal and replace. There were several strike-throughs, insertions of language in a number of different places. And since it was so massive, it was very difficult to read, and especially in the manner in which we are now putting things forth to the voters. This bill, as it now is, in Senate Committee Substitute 1, is a complete and total repeal of 3 sections of the Constitution and replacement with rewritten language. So you don't have to interpret the strike-throughs, you don't have to read the replacements, understanding the replacements. It is simple strike-through and elimination and new language that's put back in. It makes it very easy to read now. It also, as we discussed a number of times, this is actually the 3rd year that I've proposed this constitutional amendment. Actually happened before COVID started, and I think that COVID and the situations that presented themselves during that point in time showed the need for us to have some flexibility in how we conduct our sessions. Just as this year, whether it be the natural disasters that we are dealing with, the floods, the ice in many portions of the state, or whether it now deal with the federal money that is coming down, which we're still waiting for some clarification on. I do think that the way that we have conducted our sessions has become antiquated. And I think that the flexibility that we have, while maintaining the original purpose of being a part-time legislature, will make us a more effective and more responsive legislature. When these ideas were conceived, travel to and from Frankfort was very difficult, and when people got here, they needed to stay here. When these ideas were conceived, much of the economic portion or economic engine of Kentucky was agricultural based, and they needed to be here during the winter for as short a period of time as possible. And in keeping with the idea of having a part-time legislature, I think it's more important that we become as responsive as we possibly can. I don't think anybody loves the fact that the legislature is in session, even during a short period of time. But at the same time, if we're going to be here, then let's be as effective as we can possibly be. Let's be as efficient as we can possibly be. And with that in mind, in our conversations with the Senate, we kept talking about different situations that could arise over the years, and hoping and knowing that this will likely stay the same, assuming the voters adopt it and ratify it. This language is likely to be in place for another 50 years. And recognizing the absolute need for flexibility and the intent of that language, we got to a point where the Senate recommended that as long as we're striving for flexibility, then perhaps maybe we shouldn't put everything in the Constitution. Maybe we should rely more on statutory language to establish our calendars. to go through the process of how we conduct our sessions. It seemed to be pretty logical. The one thing that came up in that discussion many times was we don't want to fall into that trap of becoming a full-time legislature. We need to honor the intent of our service as a part-time legislature. And as part of that, we need some assurance, and I heard this time and time again from other members as we discussed, we need some assurance that when we set a calendar, that everybody has a pretty good reliance that we're going to stick to it. And so this requires that the calendar actually be set forth in statute. And once it's in statute, it takes a 3/5 vote of the body to change the calendar. Again, allowing for flexibility when needed, but also providing some stability for scheduling purposes as those may occur. The Senate also sent Senate Bill 181, which is the enabling legislation for House Bill 4, or at least a vision of the enabling language for House Bill 4, knowing, of course, that this won't go into effect until after the voters vote on it in 2022, understanding that language will change before we finally pass it. We will likely pass it next year. Even if we pass it this year, we will likely pass it again next year. I think it's important that we take what we've learned in exploring this process, listen to the voters, listen to our constituents, listen to the members before passing the final version of the enabling legislation that would bring us into the 2023 session. So that will be coming shortly in Senate Bill 181, which I believe is out of committee now and is now in the rules. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I would ask that the clerk please report Senate Committee Substitute 1.
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Committee Substitute 1 to House Bill 4.
Gentleman from Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have now explained the Senate Committee Substitute, so if there are no questions, I would move that the House does concur with Senate Committee Substitute 1 to House Bill 4.
Question for the body is that the House does concur with Senate Committee Substitute 1. Is there any debate or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senate Committee Substitute 1 is adopted. Gentleman from Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, or Mr. Speaker. Please have the clerk report Senate Floor Amendment 1.
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Floor Amendment 1 to House Bill 4.
Gentleman from Oldham. House stand at ease. Gentleman from Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought that language was included in the Senate Committee Substitute 1, but apparently it was not. This just says that, clarifies when law actually becomes law. When we pass a bill, that question came up when it was here in the House, is since there is no effective end date to the session as to when a law or a bill becomes a law, and it is the sooner of when the governor signs or when we adjourn the session. So if there are no questions, I would move that the House does concur with Senate Floor Amendment 1.
Question for the body is on concurrence of Senate Floor.
Bill becomes a law, says
Gentleman from Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought that language was included in the Senate Committee Substitute 1, but apparently it was not. This just says that, clarifies when law actually becomes law. When we pass a bill, that question came up when it was here in the House, is since there is no effective end date to the session as to it was.
From Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, or Mr. Speaker. Please have the clerk report Senate Floor Amendment 1.
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Floor Amendment 1 to House Bill 4.
Gentleman from Oldham. House stand at ease. Gentleman from Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought that language was included in the Senate Committee Substitute 1, but apparently it was not. This just says that, clarifies when law actually becomes law. When we pass a bill, that question came up when it was here in the House, is since there is no effective end date to the session as to when a law or a bill becomes a law, and it is the sooner of when the governor signs or when we adjourn the session. So if there are no questions, I would move that the House does concur with Senate Floor Amendment 1.